Today, if you could tell, we're in the office again. And that's because I'm doing a couple upgrades to the office, got a couple new things to add to the office. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity just to have a little conversation about a YouTube studio. Or just, you know, a general studio for filming, photography, or anything kind of like that. It's worth mentioning that these are just some general viewpoints. Everybody's opinions on this may vary a little bit, depending on your workflow, the kind of work you do, what you're looking to do, but in general, in my opinion, in my experience, these are some good tips when putting together a studio. Okay, so one of the first things you should consider when you're determining where to put your studio or when you're setting up your studio is light. I don't mean LED panels or big artificial external light sources. We'll get to that in a minute because that is important. But right now what I'm talking about is natural light. Right now I'm being lit by a huge window I have in my studio/office. Natural light, I think, is a great thing to work with. A, it looks awesome. It's really hard to beat the look of natural light. I love to shoot things in it. And B, it's cheap and, well, free. So I mean, that's as cheap as you can get. I realize some people are going to have to set their studios up in basements or in an interior room of a space where there aren't any windows, and if you don't have natural light, that's fine. You can work around that using external light source. But if you have the option to set your studio up in a place where you have natural light, I would do so. Oftentimes when I'm doing product shots, I will scoot over and do the shots by a window just because natural light looks so damn good. It's hard to beat natural light. It looks awesome. So when you can, if possible, set your studio up somewhere where you have a nice natural light source. Now, the second part of the glory of natural light is it can be a pain in the ass to work with. If you're trying to film a video completely by natural light, if you've got a sunny day where the sun is going in behind clouds and coming in and out, your exposure is going to be constantly changing. So even though natural light is beautiful and it's great to work with, the second part of that is have a way to control any outside light. In my particular studio, what I've done is I have a blackout shade that can be rolled down. So when I want to use the natural light, I can roll it up. When I don't want to use the natural light, I can roll the shade down and it gets pitch black. Wait. See the difference? That's with the shade down. No natural light. Only light we've got is what was left. This is like the above lights. This allows me the ability to control the light, which is very important. In a studio, you always want to be able to control your light. It's key to getting the shots you want when you want to get them. The next type of light that we need to discuss is artificial light. It's something you really are going to have. Now, the cheapest form of light is what we just talked about, natural light. And if you're on an extreme budget and you can't afford lighting, you can definitely make do with that until you can afford to get some lighting. But as soon as you can afford it, I highly recommend getting some form of light. It is nice to not be slave to natural light and to be able to manipulate the lighting as you need it to. That could be 1,000 different things, and that could be a whole nother video. You could get the big aperture 120D with a light dome, which is my preferred light source. There are tons of LED panels. I've done reviews on several you can use for light sources. You can go old school with a bulb and an umbrella. There are a ton of different types of light. This video is a little too broad to go into that in depth, but nevertheless, a big part of any studio is lighting. All right, next up on the list of important stuff, and some people would argue is the most important, is sound. People can deal with crappy video quality more than they can deal with crappy audio. Crappy audio really tends to drive people nuts. So working your audio out is a big part of putting a studio together. That also, unfortunately, falls into a couple parts. One, controlling the sound in your room, meaning having some soft surfaces. You could partly do this by carpet on the floors. If you don't have carpeted floors, if you have hardwood like I have, you could put some rugs down. Acoustic panels, acoustic diffusers, different types of things can soften the walls. In my particular studio, I built these kind of DIY acoustic panels by making some panels, filling them with foam, and then wrapping them in material to kind of deaden the sound up here so it doesn't echo too bad. A lot of echoes, it sounds like crap. So you can go as budget as you want. You could even just put some egg crate on the wall behind where you're recording to absorb the sound. Doesn't have to be an expensive endeavor, but you definitely need to sort out trying to deaden the room a little bit and keep the echo to as minimal as possible. The next part of sound is the actual way you record sound. A lot of this is going to have to do with budget and or kind of what you're doing. Like right now, I'm hand holding my camera, I'm moving around, so I'm using an onboard shotgun mic, which is probably making a ton of noise when I'm doing this. That's super annoying. But anyway, I'm using a onboard shotgun mic, which makes it nice for portability. You can move around and the mic comes with you. If you are sitting still doing some talking head type stuff, you're usually going to get better audio with something like this, which is like, you know, a more high-end shotgun style mic. There's different types of mic you can use. And that's being recorded instead of directly into the camera like I'm doing now, that's being recorded into an external audio recorder. That is really the best way to get audio, but if you're a little bit more on a budget and you're on the go, you can certainly use one of these onboard Rode shotgun mics. You can get those for relatively inexpensive and it does sound really good. My only suggestion would be not to use the onboard mics to your phone or your camera or whatever you're filming. Onboard microphones that are built into these things tend to suck. So my only suggestion would be to steer clear of that and get some kind of external microphone. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is having a workspace or a desk, something to that nature. Old Faithful here. It's a very multi-use thing in a studio. It's obviously your place where you're going to sit, do your planning, you're going to, you know, maybe plan out your shoots, your shot list, do whatever. It's also obviously your kind of workstation. So this is where you're going to sit, you're going to edit your videos, you're going to edit your photos, you're going to do all that stuff. The secondary part of that, the secondary role a workspace slash desk performs in a studio though, is having somewhere to shoot. A desk can be a good place to do product shots. I do product shots at my desk sometimes. A lot of people film at their desk, so they'll have their camera set up over here somewhere facing out and they're actually working on their computer while they're filming tutorials and whatnot. So a lot of times it is a place to film. It's basically a set piece. Sometimes it's in your background of your videos and it's providing some interest. So a workspace slash desk is super important in a studio. Another very popular version of a desk is a standing desk, which I think is great. I've wanted to incorporate one of those in my workspace for a while because it's great when you're sitting for long periods of time to be able to raise your desk up, stand at it for a little while, give the old back a little bit of a break. Just so happens, part of the video today, I had a company send me a standing desk. Obviously, I'm not going to replace the big workstation. I'm going to use mine for kind of a secondary area to shoot at, but figured I'd show that to you guys today while we were talking about studios and desks and whatnot. So let's do that real quick. That brings me to another point. If you could choose to have your studio on the ground floor, do that because steps suck. This thing's pretty awesome. It's on casters, so I can move it around. You know, that's something to consider when you're looking at desks and stuff for your studio. You know, get something that's versatile. This thing's on casters, and with the adjustable height, that's going to allow me to not only work at it, but allow me to use it for lots of different shooting scenarios. Whether that be using it as a platform that I can move around to put products on, I can move it around different locations in the studio, or whether if I'm doing a video that I need to have a desk in front of me and shoot at it, I can move it up so I'm standing while I'm filming it. Lots of different options. So I think this thing is going to be super cool. Look for a full review on that sometime in the future. But back to the original point at hand, another key part of a studio is having a workplace. Now, the next part of a studio that's important, that kind of blends in with the workspace or the workstation, is the computer. I don't want to get big into that because computers are highly personal, and every time I post something about a Mac on here, I'm always amazed at how many people hate Macs and like to just throw all kinds of shade. It's amazing to me that people get so intensely personal about a computer choice. But in any event, it doesn't matter whether. All right, well, let me just pause that for just 1 second. Hold on, let's just get you over here. Let's just take a second in this part of the video to address the fact that you could tell my voice is probably going out in this part of the video. I apologize for you having to listen to the nasal, annoying voice, but also to explain that that's why I kind of am very late uploading this week. My kids got sick and the plague came through the house and I felt like crap last week. So in the middle of filming this, I went dramatically downhill and then I was sick and it took me several days. I'm still getting over it. You could probably still hear it a little bit. So, all right, I'm gonna have to interrupt my man here for just a second. I would feel remiss if, while we're paused at this particular spot in the video, I didn't address the fact that if you're gonna make a comment below about computers, just don't. Tell somebody who gives a shit. Again, like I mentioned, it's just a computer choice. Every time I mention computers, you guys have to in the comments, Max, you mentioned it. Let's just hold off on this video and save our opinions for somebody who cares. All right, guys. Thanks. Love you guys. All right. Again, I'm sorry I was a little late on the upload, and for the voice, but there was a good explanation. Sickness. So, sorry. It doesn't matter whether you get a Mac or a PC, a laptop or a desktop. If you're filming videos or doing photography, you're gonna need some kind of computer to edit your videos, edit your photo, so forth and so on. If you're editing photos and editing video, more than likely you're gonna need something fairly robust. A lot of times if you're using a low-end computer, it's gonna really struggle with video and photo editing. So just leave yourself a little room in the budget when you're thinking about designing your studio for your computer setup. Cameras. That's another thing you have to really consider when setting up a studio. Obviously, a big part of filming, whether that's video or photo or whatever, is having something to take that on. You don't have to have a big old DSLR like this one. You don't have to have a DSLR at all. You could have a point and shoot. You could use your cell phone. It doesn't really matter what you're using. A lot of people will say it's not the equipment that makes something good. It's the person behind the equipment, which I think is accurate. One of the things that always frustrates me when people say that is it's usually people that have expensive cameras that say that. And it is true that having expensive gear, expensive cameras and stuff does make your job easier, but that doesn't mean it's something you have to have. It doesn't really matter what you're using, but you definitely got to have something if you're going to have a studio. So, camera. The next thing we're going to talk about is puking on a video in front of a lot of people. Oh, boom. A little dizzy. Actually, what we're going to talk about is all the stuff around here. Background, atmosphere. That, in my opinion, is a very important part of a studio for multiple reasons. It keeps you creative, it keeps you inspired. If you're in an interesting environment, you don't want to just be in a plain gray room with nothing. That's just not inspiring or motivating at all. Also, if you're doing YouTube, you really want your background to be interesting, so in your videos, you have some visual interest. Put stuff on the walls, make it interesting. Put stuff that is personal to you, stuff that you're interested in, because like I said, that's gonna make an interesting background for other people. It helps kind of explain some of your personality, and it also, if it's things that you love and you like, it helps you stay creative and inspired. So put some effort and work into the atmosphere / background of your office. Something else you may want to consider is some form of backdrop. I know I just said keep your background interesting and all that, and I fully believe that. But sometimes if you're doing certain types of shooting, you're gonna want your background to be plain. So it's not a bit, I just recently put this up. Prior to, I've used something as simple as a little piece of black foam core. I've used that in the past. I've used black material stretched around a frame. This I just put up, if you have the space, this is a great thing. These are rolls of paper systems on the wall. This one holds 2. So I'm gonna get a gray or a white one so I have different colored backgrounds. And then you just pull this bad boy down when you want a plain backdrop. And you can give a very dramatic look to something when you black out the background or gray out the background and everything's really focused on the product. You put some dramatic lighting on it, whatnot. Sometimes even talking head stuff. I've seen lots of YouTubers, lots of different people do talking head stuff with just a black background, occasionally with some lights on the backdrop, and it looks really nice. Something a little more like this. Now, I'm not saying this is great. It only took me a second to set up. I could definitely tweak a lot of things in this, but if you wanted a more dramatic kind of really focused in on the talking head stuff, little red light shining on the background. If you didn't like red, you could take that off and just do some light on the background. Point is, backdrops give you some good versatility. Between getting yourself some backdrops and creating a background environment in your studio, you got a lot to think about. So consider all those when you're setting up your studio. Alright guys, so that's it for me today. There is a lot that goes into putting a studio together. I mean, it's a very personal thing. Everybody's studio is going to look way different. There's a lot of little pieces and details and intricacies and personal tastes, and so if this helps narrow it down for you at all, or maybe streamlines your process when you're putting your studio together, that's great. I hope that's what this does. I thought just throwing a quick video out there about the things that I think are helpful and help me stay creative and productive in my studio might help somebody out there out. So hopefully you guys do find this helpful. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. That always helps us out. As always, I will put some links and stuff in the area below in case any of the stuff in here you guys are interested in for your studio. That way you can find it. If you're not a subscriber, please consider doing so. We'd love to have you on board. I hope everybody is having a great week, and we will see you in the next video.